this last week, so every Thursday I have a men's group that we meet here at the church. Every Thursday morning right out in the foyer. And it's an open group. I ask that you connect with me before you just show up. I mean, you're welcome to show up. We're not going to kick you out. But connect, because this group takes it seriously. Like, this is not a fluff group. If you're looking for a fluff group just to hang out and do guy stuff or whatever that is, this ain't it. We are in the Word, we're in the Spirit, we're ministering to each other. Right out the gate, we're going for it. It's a lot of fun, and we're watching lives transform right in the midst of our group. It's amazing, okay? So it's something so powerful happens when a group of people intentionally go after the things of God. Like, no resistance. Just go after the things of God. Whoo! You'll watch lives change. So fun. This last week, we were together, and we started to do something that I wanted to continue the discussion today in the church, because we saw such expression of God's presence in it. We talked about Thanksgiving. Not the holiday, I mean the act of giving thanks. I felt really strongly that we were supposed to, before we minister, and so this is kind of how the group goes. We get together, we'll break into groups of 3, and we'll pray and prophesy over each person. And then we'll come back together, and often there will have been a word, something that the Lord was saying. I like to do the Proverbs, and so there'll be some sort of razor sharp, word of the Lord, and then we're off and running in our days. It's a powerful time together. This time, I felt like we were supposed to touch Thanksgiving first and then minister out of that. So we broke into the groups of 3, same thing as we always do, except for I had the guys begin to, whoever was going to be prayed over, the person in the hot seat. 2 people are praying. Instead of jumping right in to pray for their needs or whatever's going on in their life, instead, we spent significant time giving thanks for that person. Thank you, Jesus, for Joe, all that you're doing in Joe's life. Thank you, Jesus, for his impact in our lives. And what was amazing is that in those short exchanges, that person who is hearing other people give thanks to God for their life is getting a version of themselves that they're not used to hearing. They're seeing a reflection of how they interact with others through people's eyes. The ones who are ministering are hearing the other person give thanks for them, and they're receiving a perspective that maybe they weren't thinking about. Wow, I never thought about that person and how they affect people's lives like that. So suddenly the whole group is seeing from a different perspective than when we started. It's really hard to be critical when you're thanking. Really hard to be judgmental when you're giving thanks for somebody. You can't give thanks for something and criticize it all in the same breath. This process unlocked something. We felt the presence of God touch and move, and it was powerful. And I've had testimony after testimony just from this last week of how it's affected those guys. I was prepping for this service, and I began to think about the times in my life where I have seen dramatic supernatural intervention in situations. And as I began to recount them, they all began to have the same thread of why that situation turned around. We were on a trip out west. I had, it was at the beginning of the church, several years ago. Church is 16 years old, right? So this is way at the beginning, probably 14 years ago or something. And there was a group of guys, and one of them worked for an airline and had a whole bunch of buddy passes that were going to expire. And so they said to the group of guys, hey, let's all go out west and go skiing. They booked like an Airbnb type place, and we all got free airline tickets. We all got free stay. We pooled together resources. Boom, this is a cheap trip, and we're all getting to go ski at Breckenridge for a couple days. Awesome, right? Like persecuted for Jesus. I can't believe that someone's got to do it, But this experience was fun, so we're excited. We're going for it. Well, we all get out there without any problem. No problem on the way out. But on the way back, we're flying back on a Saturday morning, and I have to preach on Saturday night. All right, and a bunch of the guys have other stuff that they got to do too, and so there's some of us who really have to get back, and some of us who, if we get bumped, not a big deal. And we're all on buddy passes. So we show up to the, you can see where this is going, right? We show up to the ticketing experience, and turns out only one of us can get on. And they're like, all right, PJ, you take it. You know, you've got probably the most critical thing. Let's get you home. We'll figure it out. There's a few others that are able to get on the plane, and we're all sitting there, and they're shutting the door, and I look up front, and in first class, there's one seat left. And I'm thinking to myself of who's not on the plane. And that list of people, and I'm thinking, I know who's going to walk on the plane right now. I know who's going to walk on the plane, because there's one person that's left that walks in so much stinking favor. Like, melt your face off favor. I know who's going to walk on the plane. And sure enough, like 30 seconds later, Josh Johnson walks on the plane. Okay? Josh is the corporate treasurer of our church and helped us plant. We've been friends forever. Anyway, Josh walks on the plane, sure enough, sits down first class, right? And, I'm kind of chuckling to myself, yeah, I'm going to hear the story when we get off. So we get off the plane back in Minnesota, everybody's home, and he walks up and he goes, man, I've got a story for you, right? He said, I got on the plane and I sit down, and immediately the guy next to me starts berating the flight attendant. Hostile towards me. Yelling at all the people, because it turned out that the guy who had bought the ticket in first class had purchased 2 of them and didn't want to sit next to anybody. Anybody experience hostility recently? Anybody experience the world a little more harsh with itself? Little shorter fuses than we're used to walking in. Everybody's a little bit on edge. You get cut off in traffic, which you will now because everybody's a terrible driver suddenly. I don't know what happened. 6 months of isolation was not good on driving. Suddenly everybody's in a hurry, and it's just wild, the tension that's just hanging in the air over people. And Josh says, this is what happened. I sat down and the hostility was high. But within 30 seconds, he turns it around to where that person begins to tell him life story, and they become best buddies, to where the guy's given Josh his information so he can work with him in the future. Right? How does someone do that? Because heaven kissed that moment, but it didn't start off that way. It started off like hell. See, when someone's super defensive and angry around me, it's really easy for my defenses to get up and then react out of that. Everybody knows how to do that. I don't need to teach you how to react. How do you overcome it? How do you get heaven to touch a situation that has hell written all over it? How do you get a person who's making a decision and they seem to be hostile towards your cause? They're of a different mind. How do you get that situation to open up where they will hear reason from you? Where the defenses come down, where people have open hearts, open ears, are able to be influenced. What changes a situation like that? You know what happened? Josh sat down, and in that first exchange where the hostility erupts, he said, hey, I just want to say thank you to that guy. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me. I needed to get home to my family, and it really mattered. I really appreciate the fact that you are allowing me to sit here. Thank you. The guy's defenses drop immediately, and he turns to him and goes, yeah, and then explains his situation. Josh again affirms and says, hey, thank you so much. Next thing you know, he's sharing his heart and opening up his life, and yeah, I got a family too, and blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, they're talking business, exchanging numbers, information. It went from someone irate to a partnership.